What if I told you that some of the biggest heists in human history were not committed by criminals in ski masks? They were committed by men in suits, in boardrooms, with lawyers on standby. They stole billions, they lied to millions, they destroyed lives, and most of them walked free. Today, we are counting down the top 10 companies that committed massive, documented fraud and faced consequences so small they barely felt them. Stay until number 1, because that one will make your blood boil. Before we start, a quick note. Every single company on this list was found guilty, settled charges, or entered agreements admitting wrongdoing. This is not speculation. This is documented. And yet, when you see what happened to them after, you will understand why corporate fraud is the most profitable crime in America. Let us get into it. Number 10. Raytheon Technologies, defrauding the United States military. Raytheon is one of the largest defense contractors in the world. They build the weapons and systems that protect American troops overseas. They were caught doing something almost unimaginable, lying to the United States Department of Defense about the pricing of Patriot missile systems. Employees provided false and fraudulent information to deliberately mislead the government during contract negotiations, overcharging the very country that trusted them with national security. The result was a 3-year deferred prosecution agreement, essentially a hall pass. Raytheon paid a fine, agreed not to repeat the conduct, and no executive went to prison. Raytheon continues operating as a top United States defense contractor to this day. Let that sink in. Number 9. SAP. SE, bribing governments on 3 continents. SAP is one of the world's largest software companies. They sell enterprise technology to governments and corporations across the globe. Between 2013 and 2018, they were paying government officials in South Africa and Indonesia cold, hard cash bribes to win lucrative contracts. Cash payments, wire transfers, shopping trips, political contributions. When caught, SAP entered a deferred prosecution agreement with the Department of Justice and paid over $220 million. Not a single top executive faced criminal charges in the United States. SAP's stock barely moved. Business continued. The bribery, apparently, was just a cost of doing business. Number 8. Waste Management, the $6 billion accounting lie. Waste Management, a company that literally takes out the trash, and it turns out their financial statements were just as dirty. For more than 5 years, executives reported $1.7 billion in fake earnings. They falsified how they recorded the depreciation of their equipment, manipulating numbers to make the company look massively more profitable than it was. The Securities and Exchange Commission called it one of the most egregious accounting frauds they had ever seen. Investors lost an estimated $6 billion. The punishment was a shareholder settlement of $457 million. That is less than 8 cents on the dollar of what was stolen. Not one executive went to prison. Waste Management today has a market capitalization of nearly $90 billion. Number 7. HSBC, laundering $881 million for drug cartels. HSBC, one of the world's largest banks, spent years laundering money for the Sinaloa drug cartel, the actual Sinaloa cartel, the organization responsible for thousands of murders and for flooding American streets with drugs. How did they do it? Cartel operatives would literally walk into HSBC branches in Mexico with boxes of cash specifically sized to fit through the teller windows, and the bank processed it. No questions asked. The Department of Justice investigated. The evidence was overwhelming. HSBC paid $1.9 billion, at the time the largest bank fine in history. But here is the part that broke prosecutors. Not a single HSBC executive was criminally charged. The Department of Justice said they were concerned about the bank being too big to prosecute and the systemic financial risk it would cause. Too big to prosecute. Those are actual words used by the United States Department of Justice. Number 6. Boeing. 346 people died. No executives were criminally charged. This one is different from the rest. This is not about money. This is about lives. The Boeing 737 MAX. In 2018 and 2019, two of these planes fell out of the sky within 5 months of each other. Investigations revealed that Boeing had knowingly concealed critical safety information about the plane's automated flight control system from both regulators and pilots. Internal messages from Boeing engineers, later made public, showed serious concerns were raised internally and ignored. One engineer wrote that the airplane was designed by clowns who are in turn supervised by monkeys. Boeing entered a deferred prosecution agreement and agreed to pay $2.5 billion. No one went to prison. In 2024, the Department of Justice moved to bring new criminal charges, but the families of the victims say that it is still not enough. Number 5. Goldman Sachs and the One Malaysian Development Berhad scandal. The One Malaysian Development Berhad scandal is one of the most outrageous financial crimes in modern history, and Goldman Sachs was right in the middle of it. Malaysia's sovereign wealth fund was set up to develop the country's economy. Instead, over $4.5 billion was systematically looted by government officials and their associates. Goldman Sachs raised billions for the fund through bond deals, collecting around $600 million in fees. Some internal employees knew that the deal structure was highly suspicious. The money was being used to buy luxury real estate, fund Hollywood films, and purchase a $250 million super yacht. In 2020, Goldman Sachs agreed to pay $2.9 billion to settle charges in the United States and globally. Its Malaysian subsidiary pleaded guilty to bribery. Senior leadership at Goldman Sachs faced no criminal liability. The firm is still operating, still one of the world's most powerful banks. Number 4. Purdue Pharma and the Sackler family, the architects of the opioid crisis. If you want to understand how deeply broken the system of corporate accountability truly is, look no further than Purdue Pharma and the Sackler family. Purdue Pharma manufactured OxyContin. They marketed it aggressively to doctors, to patients, knowingly downplaying its addictive properties. Internal documents showed they knew exactly how addictive it was. They sold it anyway. The opioid crisis that followed killed more than 500,000 Americans, more than the entire Vietnam War. Purdue Pharma filed for bankruptcy. The company was dissolved. But the Sackler family, who had extracted billions from the company before it collapsed, negotiated a settlement that shielded them from further civil lawsuits. They paid roughly $6 billion across multiple agreements. The Sackler family's estimated net worth remains in the billions. They kept their art collections, their real estate, and their names on museum wings across the world. No member of the Sackler family has gone to prison. Number 3. Wells Fargo. 3.5 million fake accounts. Real bonuses. Wells Fargo is one of the biggest banks in America, and one of the most audacious frauds ever committed directly against ordinary trusting customers. For up to 14 years, Wells Fargo employees secretly opened millions of unauthorized bank accounts, credit cards, and financial products in real customers' names without their knowledge or consent. Why? Because Wells Fargo had a toxic sales culture that pressured employees to hit impossible targets. Open accounts, meet quotas, collect bonuses. 3.5 million fake accounts were eventually identified. Customers were charged fees they never agreed to. Their credit scores were damaged. Some people lost their homes because of cascading financial consequences they did not understand. The penalty was a $3 billion fine. Chief Executive Officer John Stumpf resigned. He walked away with approximately $130 million in compensation. Not a single executive was criminally charged at the time of the original scandal. Wells Fargo continues to operate with over 4,700 branches across the United States. Number 2. Volkswagen. 11 million cars. One very clean lie. Volkswagen, the company whose slogan was Das Auto, the car, and for years they had another slogan they never shared publicly: cheat. For nearly a decade, Volkswagen installed secret software known as a defeat device in 11 million diesel vehicles worldwide. The software detected when a car was being emissions tested and temporarily reduced pollution output to pass. On the road, those same cars were emitting up to 40 times the legal limit of nitrogen oxide, poisoning the air in cities across the world. When exposed in 2015, Volkswagen paid over $30 billion in fines, settlements, and vehicle buybacks globally. Several United States-based Volkswagen executives were charged. One served prison time in the United States, but the senior German executives who oversaw the fraud were not extradited. Germany refused to extradite them. Former Volkswagen chief executive Martin Winterkorn was indicted in the United States, an indictment he will likely never face while remaining in Germany. He collected a pension from Volkswagen worth millions per year. Number 1. Enron, the fraud that changed everything and changed nothing. In the year 2000, Enron was the 7th largest company in America. It reported revenue of $101 billion. Fortune magazine named it America's most innovative company 6 years in a row. It was all a lie. Enron's executives had built an elaborate web of shell companies designed to hide debt and manufacture fake profits. The company was technically bankrupt for years before anyone on the outside found out. When it finally collapsed in 2001, $74 billion in shareholder value evaporated overnight. 20,000 employees lost their jobs and their retirement savings locked into Enron stock they were legally prevented from selling, while executives quietly sold their own shares for tens of millions of dollars. Chief Executive Jeff Skilling was sentenced to 24 years in prison, later reduced to 14 years. He was released in 2019. Chairman Ken Lay was convicted but died of a heart attack before sentencing. In the months before the collapse became public, Lay sold $70 million in Enron stock. Skilling sold around $60 million. They knew, and they cashed out while their employees, people who trusted them with their futures, lost everything. The Enron collapse led to the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, sweeping new regulations designed to prevent this from ever happening again. It happened again. Every single company on this list came after Enron. So what do all 10 of these companies have in common? They had access to the best lawyers money could buy. They could afford to negotiate. They were too big, too connected, or too systemically important to face the full force of the law. The average person caught stealing $1,000 faces up to a year in prison. These companies stole billions, and the system looked the other way. The question is not whether corporate fraud will happen again. The question is, who is next, and will you see it coming? If this video opened your eyes, share it with someone who needs to see it. Subscribe if you want more investigations like this. We are just getting started. Drop a comment below. Which company on this list made you the angriest? I will read every single one. See you in the next one.